Well, welcome everyone. My name is Reba Osborne. I'm the Director of Government Affairs at the Naperville Chamber. Thank you for joining us here. And we are at the Chamber. We aim to be your advocate, your resource, and your community for our community. Today is one of the examples of how we plan to do that. Thank you for our Business Works Committee for putting this on. One note, we will be recording this whole session, and the recording will be on our website so that you can make sure that you can reach as many people as possible. Our moderator today is Sean LaFortune. Sean is a CPA and Senior Manager at Whipley, an accounting and business consulting firm. We are proud to have as a Chairman Circle member of our Chamber. Sean is very active in our Chamber in several roles, including serving on our Board of Directors. He's on our Business Works Committee and most recently served on our newly formed Candidate Review Committee. We are delighted to have him moderate this election forum, and we thank him very much for his time. So I will hand it over to you, Sean.
All right. Thank you, Reba. Hi, everybody. As noted before, my name is Sean LaFortune, and I will be your moderator for today. The format of the event is as follows. Each candidate will be called on to give a 1-minute introduction where he or she will provide information on why they are running, their qualifications for being on the School District 203 board, and key issues of their platform. After each candidate has completed their introduction, we will ask each of them our first question. Again, each candidate will have 1 minute to respond. Once every candidate has responded, we will ask our second question with the same format. I will ask the candidates questions and raise my hand when the candidate has 10 seconds left. I will advise you verbally when you are out of time. After each candidate has responded to both questions, we will open it up to questions from our audience. We welcome each of you to write your questions in our chat at any point during the presentation. Due to time constraints and other factors, we may not be able to get to all the questions in the chat. Please note the candidates have not been given these questions ahead of time. If time permits, we will ask the candidates one more question after our initial Q&A. Let's go ahead and dig in. Candidates are going to have 1 minute to introduce themselves, introduce their platforms, credentials for the position, etc., etc. So I'd like to go ahead and begin asking for an introduction from Kristen Fitzgerald, one of our incumbents.
Hi, thank you to the Naperville Area Chamber of Commerce for sponsoring this candidate forum. I'm Kristen Fitzgerald. I'm a mom of 3 daughters in District 203 and the president of the District 203 Board of Education, first elected in 2013. I started my career as a congressional education policy advisor, and I'm also a longtime school district volunteer. I volunteered extensively with the Home and School Organization, the School Family Community Partnership, and our Success Organization. I believe the education of our children is the most important job we have as a community, and over the past 8 years, I've dedicated myself to advocating for the success of every student, and we've made great strides. Our work to close achievement gaps, establish school communities that are inclusive and equitable, strengthen social and emotional learning, and serve more students in early childhood and summer school has resulted in District 203 attaining the highest number of exemplary schools in the state of Illinois. We're excited that new guidance by our Department of Health will allow us to achieve our goal of returning to 5-day-a-week in-person learning after spring break, continuing to provide safe in-person learning for students and staff, and meeting students' academic and social and emotional needs resulting from the pandemic are my top priorities as we progress through this school year and into the coming year. I believe my life's work in education policy, together with my years of board leadership, have uniquely prepared me to overcome the challenges of the pandemic and continue our outstanding progress toward the success of every student in our schools.
Thank you very much, Kristen. I'd like to move on to Donna Wanke, also one of our incumbents.
Thank you so much for hosting this event today. My name is Donna Wanke. I'm currently serving my 8th year on the Board of Education while being vice president for the last 4 years. I've earned a master's in educational administration and a bachelor's in mathematics and athletic training. I've been serving students in Naperville for 29 years. I began as a mathematics teacher at Naperville North in 1992 and taught for 8 years. When I had my 3rd son, I transitioned out of the classroom and turned my focus to being a community contributor by volunteering for many home and school committees, coaching soccer classes and art tests, and over the last 6 years, cross country at Naperville Central. I've also had leadership in Boy Scouts as a committee chair and adult leader at Philmont. There have been many initiatives that I've supported while on the board that have helped us to be the K-12 unit district with the highest number of exemplary schools in the state, all while saving the taxpayer $32.7 million. I've been honored to serve our community in this role and hope to utilize my experience to earn your vote and continue to serve. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share with you today.
All right, thank you, Donna. I'd like to move on now to Amanda McMillan.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. My name is Amanda McMillan. I'm a licensed clinical social worker with over 15 years experience working in nonprofit management. I'm also a mother of 3 children that live in the district. I'm running for this position with 3 priorities in mind. First, now that the schools will be opening first time after spring break, we need to focus on ensuring the resources and services are in place to help students adjust back to in-person by responding to any learning gaps and supporting students with any social emotional needs that might be unique to the transition. Additionally, we need to adjust the structure for the remote learners so that they have the support needed to learn and thrive as well. Second, I want to help District 203 enhance our diversity and equity plan to integrate it throughout the entire district. Representation matters in our teachers and staff, curriculum, activities, and opportunities. I will use a lens of DEI in all decisions made throughout the district. And finally, I want to commit to an ethical and fiscally responsible school board budget that ensures students have the resources needed to match their curricular, technological, social, emotional, and safety needs. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amanda. Next, I'd like to introduce Charles Kush. Charles, one of our incumbents.
Good afternoon, and thank you, and thanks to the Naperville Chamber for hosting this forum. My name is Charles Kush, and I currently serve on the Naperville 203 Board of Education. I've been a resident of Naperville since 2010, when my wife, Jean, and I and our kids moved here. I have 3 children, including 2 recent graduates of the district. Professionally, I have 25 years of healthcare marketing experience. I've worked for 3 Fortune 500 companies, and so that's the business experience that I bring to the board. The ability to meet objectives and set a vision is something that I bring to the table. I'm seeking re-election for the same reason I ran the first time, and that's because I believe I can make a difference, and I have a passion for helping others achieve their personal best. I believe that the district has a responsibility to provide an environment where every student has the opportunity to maximize their potential. I want to continue to be part of that solution. If re-elected, my top priorities will be, first of all and foremost, recovering from the pandemic. That includes student growth, and making sure that we're meeting all the needs of all students so that they can have their best opportunity to meet their full potential, including social and emotional support that will be required because of the results of the pandemic. Second is college and career readiness. I think we do a pretty nice job on the college side, or many of our students go on to college, but we need to continue to expand that to career readiness and make sure we're providing the skills to our kids for whatever walk of life they choose, whether that be college or whether that be entering the workforce immediately, military, entrepreneurial suit, whatever they choose to do. We need to make sure we're establishing those skills in our kids.
Thank you. Thank you, Charles. We'll have to move on at this point.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you very much. Next, I'd like to introduce Christy Helm.
Hi there. Thank you so much to the Naperville Area Chamber of Commerce for hosting. Again, my name is Christy Helm. I grew up in DuPage County. I'm a lifelong resident, but I moved to Naperville in June of 2017. I'm a single mom of a 3rd grader at Elmwood, and I love being involved in our schools here in District 203. I have my bachelor's degree in sociology, and during school, I focused on studying inequalities in the education system. I have experience working in educational sales, teaching, and for an educational nonprofit organization. Should I be elected to the school board, my 3 top priorities are: number 1, providing affordable resources for all of our families, especially those who are unable to seek those services outside of school due to finances. Number 2, diversity and inclusion. So focusing on how we can close the achievement gap, as well as continuing our teacher training in the district. And number 3, mental health services for our students, making sure that we have those services and that they are widely accessible for all of our students. I believe that my background and my passion will allow me to be a very well-versed member of the District 203 School Board, and I look forward to your vote on or before April 6th. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christy. I'd like to move on to Andrew Binkowski.
Hi, my name is Andrew Binkowski. I have 4 children in the district, 1 in high school, 2 in junior high, and 1 in elementary school. I'm also a Naperville native and a District 203 alumni myself. And as such, I've seen the fantastic education and opportunities firsthand that are provided to its students. So this is why I'm running, is because I want to ensure that this type of education is always associated with District 203. I'm very excited that students are getting back to 5 days a week of schooling, and hopefully this will allow us to the chance to focus on and address other issues that are important in the district. Issues such as an achievement gap that has actually increased for some groups over the past 5 years. Issues such as a systematic decline in mathematics performance across some grade levels, or a comprehensive diversity and inclusion plan that does not address accessibility issues for students with disabilities. Getting back to school 5 days a week, in-person learning was just the beginning. And I hope that my experience as a teacher, as a scientist, and as a parent of students in the district will help give me the voice to help plan for this district's future. Thank you.
All right, Andrew, right on time. Let's move on to Robert Reed.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for your time today. My name is Robert Reed. I'm a father of two, one at junior high and one in the grade school system. I'm husband to Christina. She's a wonderful, compassionate woman who has a private practice in counseling. We are 4-year residents of Naperville. We did not grow up here. We grew up in the Chicago Heights area. We moved here for this school district. So partially why I'm running is to bring back that transparency and accountability to the school board. I believe that as an elected school board member, our job is to represent the residents of Naperville and be their voice. I would use my background in strategy and organizational efficiency to work toward achieving the goals of the district. A little bit more about me. I have a bachelor's degree from Lewis University in Romeoville, triple major in finance, economics, and business admin. I have my master's degree from the University of Notre Dame, and I'm currently the chief operations officer for the International Bank of Chicago. I've spent my entire career developing operations and various functions to meet scalability, regulatory, and personal needs of an organization. I'm the guy that can get the operations done when a plan needs to be put in place because I've been doing it consistently for the last 20 years. I think that as part of my platform, other than getting kids back in school, as we're moving towards that, we need to explore the deficiencies in the infrastructure that have come to light as the significant limitation to the in-person learning. I think we need to work towards equity for all students to receive the best possible school experience, whether that be at home or in school. Our children deserve to succeed. This isn't something that should be questioned.
Okay, Robert, I'm going to have to cut you off. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's move on to Adam Russo, please.
Thank you. Excuse me. My name is Adam Russo. I'm a 20-year Naperville resident, 3 kids in the district. I'm a clinical social worker by training and an entrepreneur. Started my practice here in Naperville about 15 years ago and grew it to over 100 employees. And during that time, spent a lot of time being active in the district, whether especially in the Naperville Chamber as a board member and chair of the board for about 7 years with District 203 on the Council for College and Career Readiness, volunteer and mentor for the Incubator EDU program. And then in the business partnership committee with the district. And my purpose has always been, how do we prepare kids for post-high school life? If our goal is only to make kids look good on paper the day they graduate high school, I don't think we're doing our job. We've got to help them prepare for life post-high school. And in the course of doing that, we've got to develop soft skills that'll help for better skills into the workplace as they get older. And secondly, a focus on mental health as they get back into school, because there's a mental health pandemic before COVID. There's going to be a bigger one after, and we've got to be prepared as a district to manage that.
Great, thank you, Adam. Reba, can you let me know, do we have Bill Egan in the room?
It does not look like he's joined.
Okay, then that gets through our introductions. Thank you very much to the candidates. We'll just go and dive right into our first question. Hopefully somebody can post this in the chat so you guys have an opportunity to be able to see it as you go through the list. Our first question of the evening: how will you balance the need to support economic development while still ensuring resources are available to accommodate additional students to the district? I'd like to go ahead and start with Mr. Adam Russo, please.
Sorry, can you repeat it just one more time because you broke up on my internet? Sorry about that.
Just as soon as I unmute myself, yes.
Okay.
How will you be able to balance the need to support economic development while still ensuring resources are available to accommodate additional students to the district?
Yeah, I mean, I think it has to, there has to be a balance to it because, especially as we talk about like the Fifth Avenue development, there's a lot of resource that's going to go into in the community for, needing to invest in these areas and the balance of potential for, obviously you want an influx of people, but at the same time, there's a balance of resource that's going to come in too, as far as whether it's space or personnel, these types of things. And so I think, when as an entrepreneur, when I always look to scale my business, it was always trying to balance out between what are the opportunities and what are potential costs. And I think being able to outlay that over the course of a number of years would hopefully be able to then project, and responsibly, how are we going to best accommodate the residents and kids coming in, while at the same time make sure that we have enough staff and make sure that we're doing it in a fiscally responsible way, because there's also needs that we have to meet currently. So I would definitely want to balance all those things out.
Thank you. I'll turn the question over to Robert Reed.
Thank you. So I think it's a twofold answer here. The first one being understanding what we're spending now from a school district perspective. What initiatives are underway, what's happening, what is the money going for, and what is actually being successful. My problem with constantly implementing things and not reassessing them later is that you just keep throwing money at something that you don't know is working or not. So I think that needs to be done across the board. I think once we have an understanding of that, we can then look at our infrastructure, as I pointed out in my intro, and understand what are the needs across that board there. That ensures that we're spending every single dollar appropriately across the board for the D203. I think it's also looking at how we spend our money. Are we re-spending that money in that community, in our community, to make sure that the businesses are thriving, and then in turn putting it back into the community for growth in that fashion? So I think it's twofold. It's looking at what we're spending now and making sure we're spending it as much as possible in our community to put back in our community to basically fuel that further growth.
Okay, thank you, Robert. Andrew Binkowski, please.
Sure. All right. Well, I think that the board has shown, the current board has shown that they've been a very good steward of the budget for the school district. And, I don't see any reason that why that would change. So I think that from that standpoint, it's been very well managed. Families move to Naperville for one reason, and it's the schools. You hear it over and over again. And right now there's a fundamental change in how many people feel about the city and the district. And so I'm concerned about the ability of Naperville to not only attract people to this city anymore, but also to retain them. We have the potential to lose lots of families to private schools or move out to neighboring suburbs, even after 5 days of school has been announced. So, if there's an exodus here because, Naperville's unable to provide the education on which this reputation has been built, then we have a real problem. This could be devastating to our community, to the business community, to the entire city in general. So the board has the ability to define what education looks like in this district. As long as we provide a world-class, education, then we will get families here, and then everything, bringing families in here, keeping families in here will help to support the development of the community.
Thank you, Andrew.
Sure.
Christy Helm, please.
Hi there. Yes. So first of all, as others had mentioned, I believe that the reason that a lot of families move to Naperville is for the school district. That's personally why I moved here. And I believe that we can continue on that path to continue to attract families so that everybody has that chance for a great opportunity, a great educational opportunity for their children. I will say that our current board has showed us a track record of a lot of fiscal responsibility. And so I believe that it's really important for the board going forward to continue that fiscal responsibility. That being said, we must look at the needs of our students. If, depending on the new developments and things like that, we might have to look at, well, I'm not saying change boundaries or anything like that, but we might have to look at school capacity and what we can do to ensure that all of our students have a great education in District 203. So I believe that we need to continue looking at those things, forecasting for the future, and making sure that we're prepared so that when families are moving in, their kids have that great educational opportunity experience.
Thank you, Christy. We'll move on to Charles Cush, please.
All right. Yeah. So great question. I think the district does play a huge role in the local economy. We spend our budget's about a little north of $290 million, and a good chunk of that, about $37 million of that, is professional services. And so that district spending does end up coming back in many ways, back into the community. And so, you asked the question around infrastructure. We have a capital budget, and we spend money to make sure that we have the right infrastructure in place for the schools and capital improvements as they are needed. So we have money set aside for that. Some other folks have mentioned, but I will point out, current board has done a fantastic job of of having good financial stewardship. It's one of our key areas. So, so I think it's continued development. It's really continuing to look and understand what the needs are going to be of the students and continuing to spend the dollars and the resources, which continues to feed that money back into the community. So I think it's an ongoing cycle, and the district plays a big role in that, and we'll continue. We have and will continue to do so.
Thank you, Charles. I'd like to remind everybody, especially for those who are just joining the call right now, to please mute yourselves because we are hearing some interruption. I'd like to move on then to Amanda McMillan, please.
All right, and I apologize. My dog is barking in the background. I can't really do much about that right now, so hopefully it's not too distracting. But I think that one of the things that we need to, what I really appreciate, what I've really learned in running for school board is how connected all of our local politics are. It's important for the board to also stay in tune what's going on with city council and what their plans are 5-10 years down the road around residential, and then thinking about how does that connect to us and our planning in regards to thinking about our infrastructure, our resources, our buildings, our teachers, our aides, and all those different services that we have. So really thinking about what is their 5-10 year plan, how does that connect to us, and continuing to do assessments of our resources in regards to what are areas that we need to have upgrades to, areas where we need to have new development, or other areas we might need to completely revamp. And then thinking about aligning our planning appropriately so that we have continue to provide the best resources equitable across the district so that we don't have schools that have overcrowding or lack of teachers or substitutes to meet those needs. And then we're matching our 5-10 year plan along with that. So
Amanda, I'm going to have to stop you there. I apologize. We've reached 1 minute. I do actually still see that there are some people who are not muted. So please, everyone, double check your screen and make sure you are muted, especially for those who just joined. Let's move on then to Donna Wanke, please.
Thank you. As has been said, most people move to the district because of the education, and at the same time many people move here because of their jobs, and I think the two complement each other very well. As students increase in the district, the funding that we have to be able to support those students is not just through taxpayer dollars but also through state and federal funding. So as far as supporting those students, that will come with the student moving into the district. Attracting people to the city through economic development and education complement each other. So as stated, we've been very good stewards with our taxpayers' dollars, and with 60% of our community not having students in the district, that's very important to them. And so we will continue, it's one of the board goals, one of the superintendent goals, so I hope to see that continue. And as of so far, we've saved the community $35.4 million as of our last board meeting on Monday night, the approval of the abatement. So I think that the two complement each other well and will work together. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Donna. And finally, Christian Fitzgerald, please.
Hi, so I think we've really worked to work in support of economic development with organizations like the Naperville Development Partnership, in partnership with the Naperville Chamber, in partnership with our city council. And I think that being in communication about our needs in that area has really helped to ensure that we're attracting businesses, and that when we're looking at developments like Fifth Avenue, we're looking at the combination of the project so that we have affordable housing as well as revenue development that help to balance each other out. Because I think our students and families need that affordable housing, and then seeing that additional revenue helps to offset those costs. I think as well, having our outstanding school district, that's what really builds our residents and businesses coming to Naperville. And so that's an important part of that partnership, is ensuring that we're providing the outstanding services for our students. I think preparing responsibly for any expenses, whether they come from development, whether they come from additional students moving into our schools, is something that we've really worked to do. And we've done that by reducing our expenses wherever possible, by partnering with our community when we are serving students to ensure that we're utilizing community resources like our Park District resources, our YMCA, our Champions program. All of those help us to expand services for students without increasing our tax burden. We've also really worked—
Kristen, I'm afraid I'm going to have to cut you off. Thank you very much. All right, that wraps or concludes our first question. I'd like to remind everybody who's in the room and wanting to participate to please go ahead and add your questions to the Zoom group chat, and we will attempt to get to those questions as time permits. Our next question for the group: what is your plan to increase inclusion and equity in school district staff, students, and curriculum? I'd like to go ahead and start with Andrew Binkowski, please.
Can you repeat the question one more time, please?
See that? I was talking while I was on mute again.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What is your plan to increase inclusion and equity in school district staff, students, and curriculum?
Okay, I think the first most important thing that we need to do is to listen, to evaluate, to take a look at currently the state of the situation and really understand it. Really talk to parents, talk to the families, talk to the teachers, talk to everybody, all the different levels of who makes up this our school district, because there's a lot of different issues from different people's perspectives, where some people feel that they're being addressed properly and others don't. So I think the biggest thing that we need to do is to listen to each other. I think that we need to really take a look at some equity issues that are happening in K through 2. There's, these are very important years in students' education. And by addressing those issues early, we can really take a really good, chance or swing at trying to, address some of these issues that might come up later in their, later in their school environment. So I think that is a really big thing to do. The other thing I really think we need to do is involve parents more in all of these conversations that we have. We focus a lot on teaching children, a lot of teacher training, administrative training, but the one thing that seems to be missing in this big equation is including parents to make sure that they are reinforcing the values and some of the culture that's trying to be instilled inside of the schoolroom. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Andrew. Next, we pose the question to Christy Helm.
Thank you so much. First of all, I'm just going to say there is no way that I can address all of my thoughts on this in 1 minute, but I will go ahead and do my best. As far as making a more diverse staff, I would say we need to make sure that we're targeting our hiring to HBCs and different places where we can pull a more diverse staff. I mean, if we're not seeking out those different communities, we're not going to find applicants. Then when our staff are hired, we need to make sure that they're feeling comfortable in the district. That's a big part of it as well, so that not only are we attracting the staff, but we're making sure that we get them to stay. As far as our students, we need to make sure that our zero tolerance policy truly is a zero tolerance policy. Because if students are receiving a slap on the wrist and they're not, being properly, their I guess actions are not being properly addressed, it's not going to be. We're not going to have people wanting to stay here if racist actions continue to happen in our schools, quite frankly. As Andrew had mentioned, I also believe that we need to include families in the discussion. We need to make sure that not only are we talking to our teachers and we're talking to our kids, but we need to talk to our families. And then as far as their curriculum, I believe that we need to bring in outside review boards that consist of a diverse population. So people of different races, religions, ages, all of those different things, and have them look at our curriculum and say, where do the biases exist in this curriculum?
We have to wrap up and move on. I'd like to turn the question over to Charles Cush, please.
Yeah, wow, I'm agree with Christy on this one. Too much to cover in 60 seconds, but I'll say first and foremost, it's around focus. The current board, we've done a lot to focus in this area with the hiring of Dr. Rakita Leaks, which the current administration and current board was very supportive of. Making sure that we're providing her with the resources. She's done a lot of great things to continue to bring awareness within the community. And she's made great partnerships with the parents in the community and others within the community as well. I think hiring diverse staff is important. Retention, as was mentioned earlier, is critically important as well, because you can hire folks, but you don't want to have a revolving door, because actually that can have a negative effect overall than not having a diverse staff at all. So I think it's really important to make sure that our staff reflects the diversity and the increasing diversity of the community. And then lastly, parental and family involvement. Because I think it's really important to make sure that we're striking the right balance between providing education and awareness, and at the same time, not being so heavy-handed on the punitive side. We need to make sure that while it's not necessarily, it's not a slap on the wrist, that it is meaningful, but at the same time, we have to remember that, this is a learning experience for a lot of folks, and it's important that we as educators are making sure that the focus is on educating and making folks better, to better prepare our students for what they're going to face out in the world once they leave the district.
All right, thank you, Charles. Let's move on to Donna Wanke, please.
Thank you. So first of all, I just want to say that we have lots of work to do in this area. However, the foundation that we've laid down and some of the suggestions that have been made by other candidates here has already been done. So I'm really excited about the foundation that we have. Our Director of Equity and Inclusion has has a diversity committee which engages parents and teachers and community members to be able to understand the needs that we have here. They have created together a comprehensive equity plan with goals through 2023. Those plans include academic goals, including closing gaps, and climate and culture goals, which are very important as well, because our students need to be in an environment where they feel welcome and included. But these are going to be part of school improvement plans, which creates a high level of accountability at every single school moving forward. We also have diversity in hiring and retaining our staff, and the curriculum review is underway as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Let's move on to Kristen Fitzgerald, please.
Okay, so I think the first thing about this is that our board is a leader in this. We recognize ourselves as our role, that it's our responsibility to lead in this area, and we're committed to it. So in June of 2020, we passed a resolution reaffirming our commitment to equity for all students, overcoming systemic racism, and ending racial injustice. And it pledged our commitment to looking at everything, wholly everything, our policies, our practices, our programs, our curricula, and our culture. So I'm going to focus on the areas that have become from the resolution in our comprehensive equity plan, our goals with our metrics that we're going to achieve. We are revising our curriculum to ensure that it is representative of our students and our nation's diverse history. We are looking at programmatic funding. We're committed to it. $2 million each year to close achievement gaps, and it's making progress for students. We are committed to elevating student voices, listening to their voices, holding up their experiences as a mirror to our progress to ensure that we're making the progress that we want to make. We are committed to staff training in implicit bias and in deep equity. We are committed to partnering with all families through organizations like Success, through organizations like the Bilingual Parent Advisory Committee. We are looking to ensure that every family is a partner with us in this important work. And we're holding ourselves accountable in each of these areas, in curriculum, in academic achievement, in partnership with all students and families, in hiring, diverse hiring. We have
Thank you, Kristen. I'm afraid I'm going to have to stop you. Thank you very much. Let's move on to Adam Rousseau, please.
Yeah, I'd agree with what's been said. I think the board has done well when it comes to initiatives and various programs to improve diversity and equity in the school, whether it's through achievement gaps, hiring. I mean, the initiatives have all been there, and I think all of these things should continue. I think, quite honestly, when I think about diversity, inclusion, equity in classrooms, I actually think the challenge for the board is going to be how to expand it. And when I say expand it, I think it's got to go more to philosophical diversity as well as the physical traits. The reality is we focus so much on physical, and obviously all these things exist: racial bias, implicit bias, prejudice, discrimination. All these things are very real. But what also happens is that we talk as a school district about the development of critical thinking. And in order to really develop critical thinking, we've got to have a philosophical freedom of discourse. And I think there are times in which I know kids have communicated that sometimes there isn't that freedom of discourse. So I think that's going to be the next step of diversity for the board, is how do we continue the current initiatives that have been happening, but also create an environment, a space that's comfortable in the classrooms for kids to express their philosophical opinions constructively, to develop critical thinking skills.
Thank you, Adam. And finally, Robert Reed.
Thank you. So I agree. I think the board's done a lot on this measure. I think that there's more to do. I would agree with that statement also, but I think there's more assessment to do with our current plan, right? So we have this comprehensive plan. How is it doing? It's coming to the last couple of years here now as we go through life, but we're still hearing that we've got so much more work to do. Why is that? Is the plan not addressing the basic needs? Are we meeting the physiological needs of our students to move them up to the next level? Are we meeting the needs of those individuals that we're hiring for that? Is our curriculum turning people off in coming to the district? I don't know that we've really assessed this plan to see how effective it's actually been. So my first step would be to assess the plan and its and how it's working. The next step is then to make adjustments as needed to address that plan to fill those gaps. I think that's it's great to put a plan in place, but if the plan's not working, just finishing out the plan for the sake of finishing out isn't helpful. So again, assessing where we're at and making the adjustments we need to move on and capture more of what we want to do. Thank you.
All right, thank you to all of our candidates for those first two questions. I'd like to go ahead and at this time turn it over to Reba McIntyre for questions from the chat.
Sean?
Yes.
Mrs. McMillan didn't have a chance to answer that.
Oh, Amanda, my goodness.
Thank you.
I'm so very sorry about that. You were at the top of my second page and you got cut off.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Go right ahead. My apologies.
No, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm just really glad to be able to speak about this because this is something that is one of the main reasons why I decided to run for the school board, because diversity, equity, inclusion is so important to me. And, I know that there's been a lot of great work that's been done. I really support a lot of the initiatives, but all you have to do is look around. And in my kids' school, I don't see any teachers of color. And then when you look at the board meetings, the administration, there's one person of color. And so those are things that I think need to really be addressed. And I have led personally at my organization a diversity, equity, inclusion process that I think could be really beneficial. Looking at just even history of hiring and looking at the numbers and understanding what's the demographics in regards to salary, retention, promotions around staff, looking at curriculum, what kind of books and projects do we have, and how are they representative of all different types of people and cultures, and are they sensitive to the people that are within our communities. And then finally, when it comes to students, I think that including a restorative justice type of process where we have students able to talk side by side about what they said and how that impacted them, and being able to come together to really be able to talk through those difficult things so that we can all grow and learn and feel heard and valued moving forward. So thank you. Those are my ideas.
Thank you, Amanda. And the lesson learned here, of course, is don't play around with your font sizes in the middle of a Zoom chat. So now I will go ahead and turn it over to Reba McIntyre to take a look at some of the questions that have come up in the chat. Reba?
Wonderful. We are getting great questions in the chat. Keep them coming, and we'll try our best to get to as many as possible. So one question, what would be your approach to addressing the achievement gap in the district, in District 203? So I will let Sean go through his foolproof order calling on candidates.
Foolproof order. Yeah, we've proven that to be a fool already. Let's go ahead and start with Christy Helm, please.
Yes, thank you. This is actually one of my favorite questions that I am asked. First of all, I believe that in order to close the achievement gap, we need to make sure that we're focusing on those specific areas that that our students don't have access to. So things like adding additional tutoring, making sure that our students have access to supplemental resources, extracurricular activities, things like that. I myself am a low-income single mom, and so I understand the struggle that a lot of our low-income families face as far as the achievement gap, because quite frankly, I was trying to seek out tutoring for my child, and I couldn't afford it. And I believe that we have a achievement gap with both race and class, and so we need to look at both of those issues differently. But the number one thing that I think we need to do is just connect with those families and ask them, what are you struggling with? What can we help you with? Things like that, because our schools have really great programs. We have fantastic math specialists, reading specialists, things like that. But sometimes that just, quite frankly, isn't enough. And so we need to make sure that we're taking that extra step to provide those resources to our students to help them catch up.
Thank you very much, Christy. Andrew, you're up.
Sure. Okay, so I would encourage everyone to go to look at the State of Illinois report card for District Code 203 so they can get some data about what the achievement gaps actually are. I think many people like myself will be surprised that the achievement gap is actually increasing for many subgroups across District 203 over large timescales, long enough where some of the implementation of some things should have probably seen some progress. You know, throwing money at this problem isn't necessarily always the solution. You know, if that was, then we should all be even more upset about returning $10 million to the taxpayers. So the district has to provide academic and financial resources to support these students. There are many proven, well-established ways to address the achievement gap. Early identification of issues is very important. I already mentioned it before, but K through 2 instruction, identifying issues before they have a chance to go. So the district really needs to, even something as simple and free as setting really high expectations, telling kids, expecting the best from them, expecting them from excellence so they understand it, so they push themselves. And this goes not only for children, but also for their families. So the district just needs to make sure that resources they allocate are put in the right place, and then also make sure that they're doing things, other things that don't necessarily require money in order to address. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Robert Reed, please.
Thank you. So I think this is where our teachers become our greatest resource here. I think that they know how far they should have been along this year as far as curriculum. I think they know where they're at as far as curriculum, and I think they know where they need to be for that student to pass on to next year. I don't think we can properly assess these social emotional learning gaps that we have at this point, right? These kids aren't in school full time. They're half paying attention on Zoom calls, so on and so forth. And let's be perfectly blunt, keeping a first grader or second grader on Zoom all day isn't really effective to ascertain how they're doing education-wise. So our teachers are going to become our greatest asset there. They're going to be the ones that sit there on the front line, knowing what's going on with our students from the education standpoint and social emotional learning. After that, it's about finding the right programs and grouping the students in a way that gets them to the resources they need. It shouldn't be that difficult for us to do this. We have this data. To Andrew's point, the report cards are out there. It's about getting tactical and getting these things done instead of wasting time talking about it anymore. Let's just work on getting these students to the place they need to be so that they can be successful in life. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Adam Russo, please.
Yeah, a couple of things. I mean, I think first, I've been paying attention to some of candidate Binkowski's Facebook posts. He's got some interesting data that's posted on there. And one of the ways to lower an achievement gap would be to shrink the high scores. So we want to, we don't want to lower scores in order to shrink a gap. So we want to make sure that kids are achieving as best as they can across the board so that we can then really kind of say, what is our true gap? And so we have to pay attention to that. The second part is, especially this year, I think really paying attention to what that achievement gap is going to look like. I mean, I know from kids that I speak to, both kind of, personally and professionally, there's a lot of cheating going on with remote learning. I mean, these kids are all over social media getting tests. I mean, who knows what, grades are one thing, what they actually know is going to be something completely different. So we're going to have to see where do they really stand at the end of all this, and what do they really learn, and then be able to plan accordingly, not only from, like I said, knowledge perspective, but also from the SEL perspective. So I think a combination of pushing kids to do their best, making sure that we're not deflating scores in the name of a whole bunch of other programs that we're trying to do, and just make kids do their best, and let's evaluate from there.
Thank you, Adam. Charles Cush, please.
All right, a couple things that have already been said. First of all, in terms of achievement gaps, the board this has been a focus area and will continue to be a focus area for the board. We've devoted resources towards this on an annual basis to make sure that we have money set aside to specifically focus on these gaps, and we've made progress. Now, that said, we're going to have to make sure that we're continually assessing things and where they are, especially coming out of the pandemic, as some others have already said. But I think once we have that assessment in hand, it's then determining what types of supports and what types of resources are needed. And I think we're going to have to be continue to be creative beyond just the pure academic side of things, because a lot of times, depending on where families fall socioeconomically, we need to make sure that we're providing support so that kids come school ready and able to learn. If they're dealing with other types of issues, the ability for them to learn is going to be somewhat compromised. So we need to really focus on what those different types of needs are. And then the other thing is an area I would focus in on and continue to is look to expand our early childhood education programs. We have one of the best early childhood education programs in the state. We need to continue to expand that so that you can get kids started off on the right foot. And so then those gaps don't have the chance to form, so that you don't have to worry about as much about narrowing them because they've never had the opportunity to form if we take care of them at the very beginning.
All right, thank you, Charles. Amanda McMillan, please.
Thank you. Even though I know that we are going to be learning what the actual achievement and learning gaps that we have outside of this pandemic, but historically we already know that research shows that children that are Black or brown, English as a second language learners traditionally throughout the nation have achievement gaps. And a lot of that has to do with the fact of like being able to access services, being able to implicit bias that's within our school systems, and really being able to think about what are the needs of the families of students that might not be universal, and how are we reaching out to them. So thinking about like looking at our data and being very clear about who is reaching out and engaging in our English as a language learners, our IEPs, our 504s, our honors classes, our extracurriculars, and what other services do we need that might appeal to our diverse population? Do we want to engage other services such as like a cricket team or something like that? And then thinking about also, how are we engaging the families that don't speak English or maybe are working multiple jobs, and thinking about, because they're going to be the best resource and advocate for their children. If we're not making intentions to reach out to them, then how can the students really succeed? We have to really be thoughtful about multiple different types of ways to partner with families to really help our students succeed. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Amanda. I'd like to move on now to Donna Wanke, please.
Thanks. So first of all, yes, this has been a goal of the board for years, and we continue to make progress in this area. I think the most important thing is that we're measuring these gaps with data and making sure that we're assessing those gaps with data. And then how do we address those gaps? And I think we address them in 3 different ways. We address them with teacher support, as the teachers meet in professional learning communities where they discuss each student and try to address the needs of each student individually, almost like an IEP, but for every student individually. Support for students with support staff as well. We've increased support staff. We also have a multi-tiered system of support that we've incorporated into our buildings to address the needs of all students and make sure that we have growth for all students. Early intervention is important. We've expanded our expansion of our early childhood program. We've also lowered the class sizes of students in early elementary so that their needs can be addressed. But also, in addition to all these academic things that need to be addressed, there's the lunch that we've provided, the food that we've provided to them, and clothing that comes to them through NEF and other organizations to help support the students. And we've dedicated $2 million to this each year over the last few years, and we'll continue to dedicate resources towards this. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Donna. And finally, Christian Fitzgerald.
So this is one of my most important goals when I first ran for the board, and we've made enormous progress as a board because it's one of our top priorities. We began to see that progress when we dedicated our resources towards that in 2017. And some of the things that we did when we put this initiative of $2 million together is we added teacher coaches, added math specialists, lowered the class sizes from K to 1, particularly K to 2, but K to 1 especially. And looking at that helped to improve the quality of instruction for all students. And I'll give you an example of some of the results. This was dedicated to 4 schools that had the greatest achievement gaps. And it was the first time that we looked at our resources equitably instead of equally. And we began to see enormous improvements. From 2016 to 2019, African-American students at Mill Street Elementary went from 16 to 60 in English language arts. But it improved the quality of all instructions. When you compare that to the average, that also improved from 64 to 79 over those same 3 years. So we saw growth for all students. We also invested in early childhood. Studies show that students, particularly boys of color, are behind as early as age 2. We wanted to ensure that we were addressing that. We particularly expanded from the age 0 to 3 and work with parents to partner in support of their students. We also looked at summer school. We really worked to decrease any of the barriers to summer school. Students show the summer slide over the summer where students with resources grow and others do not. And so we partnered with the Park District to do wraparound childcare. We added free transportation, and we ensured that we were targeting students to ensure that they were able to participate in summer school. It was a comprehensive effort, and this work is what is going to ensure that any of the learning gaps that we see from the pandemic, we will be equal to the challenge and ensure to be able to meet those gaps and close those gaps for all students.
Thank you very much, Kristen. Reba, do we have another question from the group?
Yes, we have several questions. So, whoops, I had one and then all of a sudden another one added. That's good. Okay, so how do you think communication could have been better facilitated between the school district and the parents/community at the beginning of the pandemic, now and moving forward. So let me read that again. How do you think communication could be better facilitated between the school district and the parents/community at the beginning of the pandemic, now and moving forward?
All right, and we'll wrap around right back to Kristen Fitzgerald.
Okay, so this is a great question. We have really worked to increase our communication because when we first started at the beginning of the pandemic, we were in a time of social isolation. And so some of our successful efforts that we've utilized in the past to communicate well with our whole community, we weren't able to utilize. Things like Focus 203, where we bring our community together and talk about a topic and get feedback. Those avenues weren't available to us. And so we utilized our board meetings, which was challenging because they are not a two-way communication system. Some of the ways that we're working to improve is, number one, we started with our 2 minutes of 203 in 2 minutes and 3 seconds. So our superintendent is doing videos that help to really break down important bites of information. We've also really worked to increase the opportunities for two-way communication, where we're able to listen and ask questions, and our community is able to make sure that they have their questions addressed. Some of those ways are looking at question and answers with our principals. I attended a Zoom for Naperville North that had over 100 parents asking questions of the principal. These are great ways that you can actually get all of your questions answered. Home and school meetings. At the beginning of the pandemic, we weren't meeting as often as home and schools. Our board members adopt 3 to 4 schools each year, and we've made an effort to attend those home and school meetings so that we can have question and answers and hear the different things that our community is feeling at this time period. Other kinds of things that
I'm sorry, Kristen, that's where we'll have to stop you. One of these times, Kristen's just going to reach right through her screen at me. But let's go on to Donna Wanke, please.
I'm just impressed that you have the ability to stop her. All right, so I think that I've said over and over again that we cannot over communicate. However, the more communication isn't necessarily always good if it's superficial. It needs to be more quality communication. So Kristen's already addressed some of those wonderfully, and I'm happy to be able to serve with her on the board because she does address those so well. I think some of the things that she didn't mention though were like our social media too. I think we're working really hard on being available and accessible through social media. The district is. I think press releases where they go to the newspaper, because for some of our community, we have about 60% of our community that doesn't have students in the schools. So the 203 and 203 is great. Like she said, social media is great, but for some of them, some of our older community, through the newspaper and our website is probably going to be the best accessible for them. And most importantly, our communication needs to come from the building level for our students through principals and teachers. We just need to have better quality communication, and that's a goal of the school board and a goal of the superintendent as we move forward. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Donna. And Amanda McMillan, please.
All right, thank you so much. I think when I hear this question, I feel like I need to answer most as a parent, right? So I'm also a parent of 3 kids that are in, 2 that are in elementary, 1 in middle school, and that's a lot of a balancing of communication, what I really received best. And it's a place to start. It's not where I'm like going to say this is the be all end all, but the areas where I felt that I really responded well to was the introduction of the 203 and 203 by the superintendent. I really liked being able to see that a short summary and focused conversation and clarity. I really also appreciated when we got ready to transition back to schools, we had a Zoom meeting with the principal to talk about and ask directly, answer our questions about what are our fears and questions we had. I think we should have that on at least a monthly basis, like a coffee with the principal so that parents can be engaged with the principals to kind of ask and see how things are going with the schools, if there's any changes, especially since there are things constantly are changing with the COVID-19 and updates. Also with the teachers, I love Zoom parent-teacher conferences, and I would think that maybe we could even have those on a bi-monthly basis, maybe with a individual Zoom with our teachers for like 15 minutes, because what we really care about is how's our kid doing, and having that access to the teacher and that kind of communication, it's so easy with Zoom, are great. And then other social media aspects I think are also good, in addition to several things that were already mentioned, but those are some of the things that resonate with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Charles Cush, please.
All right. Again, thanks for the question. I think we have the opportunity to do better. I think one of the things that I've learned and reflect on is that, all of the information that a lot of folks have felt the void of has been available. We just need to do a better job of making sure it's easier to find, easier to access. We have a fairly diverse community. We've talked about earlier about diversity of this community, how this community continue to get more diverse. We need to make sure that we're finding more efficient and different vehicles so that folks have the opportunity to receive information in the way they absorb it best, and have a range of different ways to communicate. So I think the 203 and 203 has been well received, as some folks have mentioned. But I think the opportunity to be a little bit more grassroots so that people can get information from the folks who they have the best connection with, whether that be calling up a board member directly, or whether that be the school principals and the buildings, having those smaller groups where folks can get the information disseminated. But then I think the other thing is really finding a way to simplify. A lot of the issues that we've had to communicate over this situation with the pandemic are being extremely complex. So I think it's really important for us to continue to find ways to simplify the complexity, and so that we can communicate and give people the information that is needed, that is desired, and that is in a way that it can be understood universally, by keeping it as simple as possible and as frequent as possible, and through as many diverse vehicles as folks need based on how they like to receive their information.
Thank you, Charles. Christy Helm, please.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to say, communication was hard for us during the pandemic. And so I think instead of focusing on the past, which was kind of the first part of the question, I think instead it's important to look at the future and how can we communicate better going forward. I will agree with others that I believe that 203 and 203 has been a really great addition. I know for me, it's been so nice to be able to just open up my email, watch a little snip, and know what's going on and feel like I'm in the loop. So that has been really great. And I've also noticed an increase in social media as well. I think we live in the age of technology, and so most of us are scrolling, our phones all day. And so having that information easily accessible on the social media is going to be very helpful going forward as well. I will say, from things that I've heard when I was talking to community members, one of the biggest things that I've heard from neighbors and others in the District 203 community is the lack of two-way communication. And again, I know that this has been a challenge due to the pandemic, and that's okay, but it's kind of off-putting for parents when they take the time to write an email and send it out, and they're met instead with a form response back. It just feels a little bit impersonal, and it feels like, what's the point of trying to communicate if that's going to be the communication that I get back? So that's one thing I need to think needs to be looked at. And then also, I think that we need to try to figure out a way to kind of streamline the communication, because as a parent, I only have one child, but getting emails from the teacher, the building, the district, it's just overwhelming when we're getting all of these emails all day. It's almost a part-time job keeping up with reading the emails, and it's really hard. So we need to figure out a way. I appreciate the emails, but we need to figure out a way to make that information more easily digestible by parents, so that they're not taking, hours out of their day every day reading these emails.
Okay, thank you, Christy. We'll have to cut you off there. Andrew Binkowski, please.
Sure. I'm going to say that communication this past year has been a mess. Between emails, getting robocalls, social media. I don't feel that I should have to be on Twitter to find out information from my school district. The 2 minutes and 3 minutes, or 2 minutes and 3 second videos. It's been 11 months. 3 videos do not make up for 11 months of a lack of communication. And on top of that, don't we deserve more than 2 minutes and 3 seconds of Dan Bridges' time? I think there's a lot more questions and a lot more things that need to be addressed. 2 minutes isn't enough. The district has lost the trust of the community. I think something that we could do to address this is have clear milestones for what we're doing. Support decisions with data, with references. We ask our students to do that when they write a paper. Why can't the district, why can't the board do that? And have answers that are clear and easy to find. The FAQ is an absolute mess. It has not been updated in the last 4 board meetings. Go check it out right now. And we have high schools that teach web development. Make this the project, an ongoing project for the rest of eternity. Have them run the website. Also, just consistent and clear communication will be better to families, and it'll solve a lot of problems. Thanks.
Thank you, Andrew. Robert Reed, please.
Yeah, I'm going to echo a lot of what Andrew just said. I think the challenge for me with the communication that could have been better facilitated was about the why. we got a lot of plans, we got a lot of this, we got a lot of that, but we never got any details. We never got the whys. We're still not getting whys. I think it was 2 board meetings ago that we finally understood what metric we were trying to meet to get the kids back in school. At first, there were questions about the $10 million. Then it was, no, money had nothing to do with it. It was because of the severity of the metrics. Well, the severity of the metrics haven't changed yet, but now we're going back to school full time because guidance has changed. Are we not following the metrics anymore? What's going on? We're constantly trying to figure this out as parents, and we shouldn't have to. It should just be very simple and clear. These are the milestones. These are the guidelines we're using. Here's where we're at. Here's why this isn't happening. We still don't know. So I think the biggest challenge there is that I like Andrew's idea about the website. It's very difficult to read. It points to a lot of state statutes, which it needs to, and I understand that. But ultimately, I shouldn't have to dig that hard to figure this stuff out. It should be very simple there with the pandemic going on. Here are the milestones. Here's what we need to do, go on and so forth. So that's the key to me, is that being clear and concise is the way to approach this.
Thank you, Robert. And finally, Adam Rousseau, please.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been a lot better. I mean, as a business owner, dealing with the pandemic back in March, I have 130 plus employees. The first thing I do is twice a week emails to the entire staff, good, bad, ugly. Here's where we're at. Here's what the potential problems lie. Here's the potential good news. Encouraging them to contact me, giving them my email, giving them my cell phone. Tell me what questions you have. Let me know what's going on. Hearing from them constantly what they value. Evolving the twice a week emails to what's more with the knowledge that they want to hear. And then on the flip side, I'm sitting here wondering, I do this for months, twice a week, months. Then on my end here, sitting here, wait, I don't know, are my kids even going back to school? They are they not? I heard they were. Wait, they were doing hybrid. Wait, why did they change? What were the proposals? So it doesn't make, to me, it just speaks to, quite honestly, lack of leadership. There was no direction to be able to put this communication out clearly. I'm not sure if that was supposed to come from the board, if it was before or after ceding anything to Dan, or where that was supposed to come from, but there was no leadership, there was no direction, and that has to be clear going forward.
All right. Thank you, Adam. Reba, do we have time for one more question?
Yes, I'm trying to decide which one. There's so many good questions, and each of the candidates have touched on pieces of each of them, but I'm just going to go with this one because you're right, time is getting short. We talked about the communication, the communication out. This question relates to the reverse. Other than attending a school board meeting, what have you done specifically to hear/learn of concerns that District 203 Black/African American students and their parents/caregivers may have? I'll read that again. Other than attending the school board meetings, what have you done specifically to hear/learn of concerns that District 203 Black/African American students and their parents/caregivers may have?
All right, Robert, we're going to start with you.
Sure, thank you. So other than the obvious school board meetings, I am part of other groups in this community, whether we're talking about the Maplebrook 2 pool, which I'm currently president of, or the treasurer of Troop 133 Boy Scouts. What I've done is I've reached out to those people of color to help me understand what they need and what they want going on. I have friends who are teachers who are also individuals of color that I've reached out to understand their feelings on things. And I think ultimately what we need to continue to do is listen to understand, not listen to even act at this point. I don't think we fully understand the issues that are going on here. Otherwise, let's be honest, we'd be much further along and there wouldn't be so much work to do. We continually hear from the incumbents how much they're doing on this topic, yet we keep on hearing from everybody how much work there still is to do. Why is that? What is the assessment that's not going on and what's happening to address those gaps? I think that's the key there. So I think it's continuing to have the open dialogue with people to understand what's not meeting their needs so that we can get to where we want to be to succeed.
Thank you, Robert. Christian Fitzgerald, please.
Okay, so I think one of the most important things here is that we had forums to be able to hear and understand our community's experiences with regard to racism. Shortly after the racist events in Naperville in 2019, we convened these forums, and the message that came out of those forums is that these are not isolated incidents, that this is an area where we need not just progress, transformation. And so I think that is where our board resolution, our comprehensive equity plan are coming from, is this need for whole-scale transformation in our school communities. This is work that takes time. And so I think that one of the biggest keys here is building relationships to partner with our families and our students to ensure that this work is successful. And I'm going to mention Success, which is a family-centered group started by our district parents and families to ensure the success of our African-American students, other students of color, and to empower them and their families and ensure that they are connected with the school community. I have been a volunteer with Success for many years, and this relationship building as a part of Success has transformed my understanding of equity and inclusion. And we continue to partner with our families so that we teach each other about social capital for students, about advocating for our students, about emotional intelligence. And we've had numerous district-wide events where we've been able to deliver these messages together to our community to equip them to ensure that we're able to meet our goals for students. And I think as well, student voices is really key here. I've attended many Illinois Association of School Board sessions on this, and hearing student voices is the most important thing to equip our teachers and our administrators that they are capable of seeing the slightest implicit bias when they are looking at our school policies or any kind of school situation. So
thank you, Kristen. I'm afraid I'll have to stop you there. Let's move on to Andrew Binkowski, please.
Sorry, can you repeat it one more time, please?
I believe I've got that here, Reba. 1 second.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Ariba.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. I was trying to take myself off mute.
I got it here. So
yeah.
Question for the candidates. Other than attending a school board meeting, what have you done specifically to hear/learn concerns that District 203 Black African-American students and their parents/caregivers may have?
Okay, well, I think that, since this campaign has started, the most important thing that I've done is talk to people. I've had people reach out to me. And so learning what issues are affecting different communities has been probably one of the most interesting and eye-opening experiences throughout this entire campaign. Many of the issues that we've talked about tonight, everyone's talking about, are issues that were specifically raised during those conversations, things like the achievement gap, representation. So, I think that talking to each other, hearing what they had to say was probably the most important thing. Formally, as a teacher myself, I've been part of or taken many diversity and inclusion workshops at the University of Chicago. I'm also an Apple Distinguished Educator, which has provided many resources on a global level to address these issues. What I've learned, these issues are not just for District 203. These are issues that affect school districts all over the world. And so, I think that my exposure to this is something that I'll be able to bring to there. I think the biggest thing takeaway is that I've learned is that it's just to listen and to ask and to hear what people have to say. I only know as much as I know. So talking to people and learning from their experiences, helping them to voice their concerns is probably the best thing that a member of the board could do. Thanks.
Thank you, Andrew. And we will now move on to Adam Rousseau, please.
Yeah, I think, so over the years, I think the Council of College and Career Readiness has certainly, talked about this as part of the district, and as well as the Business Partnership Committee, just talking about, how do different concerns of different people, different backgrounds kind of come into play with both of these issues, especially as far as, post high school education and experiences. The other part is with the NEF. Over the years, we've worked closely with the NEF, especially providing any clinical resources to families in need who didn't have the financial resources, and hearing those stories in the clinical setting has been certainly eye-opening. But as a clinical social worker, I've been involved in diversity trainings and things for 20 plus years, and a big part for me in that is also while all the things of racism, prejudice, bias, discrimination, all those things exist, I do also believe that empowerment of the individual is also tantamount as a skill to learn, and I think in combination with trainings is certainly important. So that's certainly a tack I've taken in my clinical work as well. I'll end there. I know my time's up.
Thank you. Saves me from having to jump in. Let's move on to Amanda McMillan, please.
Thank you. When my wife and I moved to Naperville 5 years ago, she got involved in the diversity committee through District 203 while I stayed home with all of our little kids, but we definitely talked a lot because, again, this is an issue that's very important to us. This is before they hired Dr. Rakita Leaks, and so it was great to build a community from parents that were talking directly to the school board about why they felt this was so important. Additionally, after the murder of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor last year, District 203 held a town hall meeting with students and families of color in the district, and to hear about their experience and what they've had, and I sat and listened to that, and that's what inspired me to join and run for school board because I felt so moved by that. I also participated in the town hall meeting around Asian American experience within the, a district that was held a few months ago. I also attended solidarity marches this summer with my kids and the families to hear from student leaders that led those marches, to hear what their experiences were and what they needed, and from the families, and also a Juneteenth celebration where teachers that worked around this district of color actually shared about their experience and what it was like to not be able to get tenure even though working there for 15 years because it kept getting passed around. These are things that are happening in our school district that we need to address, and that's what I have done. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Donna Wanke, please.
Thank you. So I've been a member of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee multiple times. I've also attended all of the town hall meetings that we've already heard about, and additional school board training at different conferences that I've been to. But I think what's most important when we look at this is listening. And one of the panels we had to have student voice, but I think listening to student and parent voice is most important, and actually hearing that from within our community. As a cross-country coach at Naperville Central and track coach, I get the opportunity to interact with hundreds of students and their families, and the opportunity to hear what it is that they're dealing with. But most importantly, and what I've learned the most from, is when I had a student, an African-American student lived with us for multiple months as his family transitioned. And what I learned from him will be impactful for me for the rest of my life, because the diversity or the racism that he felt and he lived wasn't outward. It was more of he felt invisible. And that's something that just breaks my heart and will stick with me forever, and I'll make sure that there are students who don't feel invisible. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Christy Helm, please.
Thank you so much. So as I mentioned, my degree is in sociology, and educational inequalities are something that I've always been passionate about. I believe that we must work towards eliminating racial inequalities in our school system. I also have attended numerous events hosted by Success, which were great events, and I appreciate the opportunity to attend those events. In addition, over the summer in May and June of 2020, I attended numerous rallies, protests, things like that, and I spoke with our community members about things that they were personally experiencing in the Naperville community. I recognize that I have white privilege, and so I haven't experienced some of those same things. And so I must listen to others in the community. I will not pretend like I know what that experience is like, but I will continue to listen to ensure that I can be a voice for those that are marginalized. I will never speak for anyone else. However, I do promise to use my voice to amplify the voices of those that are marginalized in our communities. In addition, in my apartment complex in which I live, the population of residents is primarily pretty disproportionately people of color. And so I speak with my neighbors, I speak with my friends, and they, having that insight of what people are experiencing in Naperville District 203 on a daily basis is very important. And I promise to continue to listen and, again, amplify the voices of the people that I am listening to.
All right, thank you, Christy. And then finally, Charles Cush, please.
The question being, other than attending board meetings, I will say that I've lived it. I've lived personal experience, having raised two daughters, we've gone through our schools, recent graduates of our schools. Many discussions around the dinner table have really shed a lot of light on some things. My own personal experiences, as well as a member of this community. And we as a community have work to do. We do. And so I've heard loud and clear voices. I've experienced some of those. I've been that voice in having conversations with other people. you know, including my board colleagues as well. We have those discussions in that dialogue. And, you know, friends of, you know, friends and hearing from their kids directly in terms of the experiences that they've had. And really trying to understand, and I say understand some of the experiences because we can never see all of them. And I appreciated whoever it was earlier that said, you know, you really have to listen. You can never assume that you know anything because everybody's journey is a little bit different. So, you know, making sure that you keep aware and recognizing the range of issues, particularly around disciplinary issues is one that we as the board have started to dig into. And it's something that we need to make sure that we continue to understand and reflect and understand the impact that that's having on members of the community because the issues do run deep and it's just a lot. Too much to go over in a minute, but I know that I'm at time, but hopefully that covered as much of the question as I could.
All right, thank you, Charles. I would like to give the candidates an opportunity now to take about 30 to 40 seconds for some closing statements. And I spin my wheel one more time here to come up with our random order. We're going to go ahead and start with Donna Wadke, please.
Well, thank you so much. Our district is known across the country as an exemplary district, and it takes the community and the staff and the administration, but make no mistake, it takes the current board as well to make that happen. And so I hope that our community can support Kristen Fitzgerald and Charles Cush and myself to continue the hard work that we've done to move our district forward. I hope to have your vote. I'm number 2 on the ballot. If you want more information about me, you can find it at vote4wanke203.com. Thank you.
All right, a couple seconds under. We like it, Donna. Let's go on to Robert Reed, please.
Thank you. First, I want to thank everybody who joined this evening or late afternoon. It's obviously a lot going on a Wednesday, so I appreciate everybody's time. I appreciate the Chamber of Commerce for holding these events to make sure that we continually get to hear from the candidates. Not only am I a candidate, but I'll be voting for 3 other people myself, so it's good to hear what everybody has to say. I think that the experience that I bring to the board, if elected, really has to do about executing on some of these goals that we have. It is great to have plans. It is great to have initiatives. It's great to have resolutions. But if you don't have somebody that can execute on those and actually develop an operation to get it done, none of that matters. It's just more words on paper that aren't going to accomplish anything. So with that said, you know, I hope to have everybody's support so that we can get to work on all the great things that are going on and what we need to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Adam Rousseau, please.
Yes, thanks for having us today. This has been very helpful to hear again everyone's points of view and backgrounds. And you know, for myself, you know, I think that the board, you know, over the years, I've been a Naperville resident for 20 years. I think the board historically has done well. I think in this time of crisis, though, I think it just highlighted a lack of leadership and direction somewhere that I think needs to be augmented. And we talked about some of the reasons why. For myself, I'm an entrepreneur. I've made a lot of difficult decisions over the years that have very real world consequences, and have been able to judge those things accordingly and communicate effectively. My passion has always been about how do we help kids graduate post high school. Quite honestly, it doesn't really matter to me what your race, class, or ethnicity is. I want you to be successful as an adult, and I think our district has a job to make sure that every kid is successful and do what we need to do to push that, and that's what I'm invested in doing.
Thank you very much, Adam. Andrew Binkowski, please.
Unmute here. So thank you very much for inviting us here. Also, thank you for having some different questions. That was great. So, you know, I moved here. I grew up in Naperville. I left, and then I moved back here specifically for the schools and free babysitting because my parents still live here. This is a good district, and I want to make it great. You know, we have talked about and identified many issues here that we have. One thing we can't stop, you know, we need to address or accept or understand is that we also have a lot of great successes in this district. I mean, it is still a really good place for our children to go to school, but I just think we can do so much more. You know, there's more to do. We can have more successes than we've already had. You know, education opens doors for our students. We cannot forget that when we send them to school, what we're doing is we are opening doors for the rest of their life. So, you know, my vision is to make sure that we continue to provide students the opportunities to have these great successes throughout the rest of their life. So thank you very much, and I would ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Amanda McMillan, please.
Thank you again so much for this opportunity. I really enjoyed speaking today. As I mentioned, my wife and I moved to Naperville 5 years ago for the schools, and I do not regret it for 1 second. I love Naperville. I love the schools. I love the teachers. I love the community. And as a social worker, I have been part of many opportunities, including being a part of a statewide organization that has helped youth-serving organizations help continue to adapt and provide mandatory services through the COVID-19 pandemic. Additionally, I'm currently facilitating a diversity, equity, inclusion process for our organization to ensure that all of our training and technical assistance and advocacy work is meeting the needs of all the stakeholders. And I have experience working on boards, and I understand their role and the importance of governance and not management. I believe it's because of my personal connection and professional experience that would be a great candidate, and I'm asking for your vote on or before April 6th. I'm number 3 on the ballot. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amanda. Charles Cush, please.
All right. I'll start off by saying, we don't have good schools. We have great schools. Our schools rank in the top 99, in the 99th percentile of schools nationally. That's the top 1%. And we're the top community unit school district in the state of Illinois. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens with planning. That happens with foresight. That happens with investment in the right areas. And that is something that this current board has done. So Kristen, Donna, and myself have been committed to a lot of the issues that we've talked about tonight. We already have plans in place, and we have plans to continue to build upon those plans. My focus, as it has been, is going to continue to be on student growth, college and career readiness, and financial stewardship, making sure we're striving that balance. So if you want to learn more about me, please go to my website, www.cush4203.com, to learn more, and I hope I can count on your support on April 6th. Thank you.
Right on time there. Let's go on to Christy Helm, please.
Thank you again so much for hosting. I really appreciated the insightful questions this evening. Something that I didn't get a chance to mention in my last answer is that I am committed to learning. And so going back to the diversity and inclusion in District 203, after the events in the summer of 2020, I was committed to learning. And so I enrolled in a course that was taught by the Director of Black Studies at NIU. And it was a course that specifically focused on issues facing African American students. And so as a board member, I promise to continue my own personal education to be the best advocate for all of our students in District 203. With my education in sociology and my background in education, in addition, with me being a low-income single mother, I really believe that I can provide a very unique perspective to the District 203 Board of Education. I love being a part of the Naperville District 203 community. I truly do. And so I really hope that I get to continue my role in the community as a District 203 board member. Again, my name is Christy Helm. I am number 5 on the ballot, right in the middle. I appreciate your support on or before April 6th. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Christy. And Kristen Fitzgerald.
I again want to thank the Naperville Area Chamber of Commerce for sponsoring this forum. I'm grateful to partner with you to support the students of our community. Serving the students and families as a part of the Board of Education with my board colleagues, Donna and Charles, has been a joy and a privilege, especially during this very challenging time. I'm proud of the progress we've achieved for students. Our work to close achievement gaps, to overcome systemic racism, and to ensure inclusive school communities is leading the way for increased achievement for all students in District 203, and it's leading the way in our county, our state, and our nation. We are committed to meeting our students' needs resulting from the pandemic, and our past work in this area has laid the foundation to meet this challenge. If I'm re-elected, I promise my tireless advocacy for your students and for our work together as a community to recover from the pandemic and ensure that every student is successful in our school district. I hope to have your support on April 6th, and I urge your support of our whole board, Donna and Charles as well. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
All right, and thank you to Kristen. That is our time today. So again, I will apologize if we were not able to get to your question. Please do head to naperville.net to find contact information for all of our candidates. You'll find a reference at the top of the Zoom chat for a link to the NACC page showing details on all of our candidates. And so on behalf of the Naperville Area Chamber of Commerce and our Business Works Committee, Again, we aim to be your advocate, your resource for our community. Thank you to each candidate who shared their time today to help us in being a community resource. As a reminder, a recording of this event will be posted to the NACC's website. Please do remember to vote in the April 6th election. Early voting is available. Check out the DuPage County website and the City of Naperville website for specific information on all voting options available. Thank you, everyone, and have a great evening.